This is ContraZoom.
Where we go back and forth about film.
I'm Dakota Arsenault.
And I'm Matthew Simpson.
With the recent release of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, the supposed final installment of the Tom Cruise-led Mission Impossible franchise, it seemed like a good time to look back at the series as a whole. I decided it was time to dust off the old rank structure with the last one that came out way back in 2021 when we ranked the complete filmography of Wes Anderson. Other entries into the series include the filmographies of David Fincher and Christopher Nolan in drafting our favorite A24 and Neon films. Joining Matthew and I today is Rachel Ho, the film editor at Exclaim, co-owner of the online publication The Asian Cut, and most importantly, former co-host of this podcast. Rachel was last heard on episode 302, Best Films of 2024, where for some reason she only had Sing Sing as her 9th favorite film from last year, which makes no sense at all. But for some reason, welcome back to the show, Rachel. How are you?
You know what? I actually will agree with you. I'm doing well, but I will agree with you because I think Sing Sing is going to be one of those movies that of the 10 that I picked, Sing Sing will be one that I think in 10 years from now, we're still going to talk about it and we're all still going to really love it. It's a great movie. It really is.
You know what was tough is I'm writing this intro and I'm like, oh, I got to figure out what's a funny dig I can make at Rachel. I'm like, okay, the last one she was on top 10 films of the year. I bet she has something I can roast her on. I'm looking at your list. I'm like, oh, there's nothing funny here.
Because it's all
funny
good.
I can make fun of Rachel about.
All good. It's all good stuff. Yeah. It's all good stuff. Sing Sing was really
This is mostly funny to me because Sing Sing isn't on my list at all.
Oh, Matthew!
Why do you hate movies? What's wrong?
But to be fair, I guess the reason for that is I technically didn't see Sing Sing in 2024. I saw it in the early part of 2024.
But how amazing is it?
Okay.
Like how amazing is it?
I mean, it is great. It's legitimately great.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Rachel, question for you. Did it sound weird with Matthew saying your former introduction part?
I won't lie. I was a little caught off guard. I was like, when I heard you pause, I was like, am I supposed to say something? I had a moment, just like a flashback, that I heard Matthew's dulcet tones, and I thought, see, the position is, it's well and truly, it's in safekeeping, the second chair. And I appreciate that.
Well, I can answer the question, though. The answer is yes. It was weird for me to say it in front of Rachel, too. So.
And Rachel sat there and had to listen to us.
I had to take it.
Oh, my God.
That was... Oh. Yeah, it's okay. I'll just talk to my therapist about it next week. It's fine. Don't worry.
As I told Rachel, I had to replace her with not one, but two co-hosts. So between Matthew and Jeff Bomer, only they can replace Rachel on the aggregate.
It takes two men to do one woman's job. I get it.
Yeah, that's how it works. It's some real Moneyball shit,
how
really.
It,
like
it really is.
Real sabermetrics on the podcast.
Exactly. That's how it goes.
Thank you for getting what I was going for there, Matthew. I really appreciate that.
I mean, if you make a baseball movie reference, chances are I'm going to get it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Like I said, we're here talking about Mission Impossible movies, and this is a funny one for me to do because I came so late to this franchise, as listeners of the show might know. I feel like I started watching them from 3 onwards, but I recently did a rewatch of this whole series, and like I remembered nothing up until what one would I say I probably remembered? Maybe Rogue Nation. So like from 5 onwards. I had zero recollection of 4 and 3. So watching, I was like, ooh, this is a fun, exciting movie. Whereas I know the both of you grew up with this franchise. Matthew, what's sort of your history? When did you originally watch Mission Impossible?
1996.
Amazing.
I'm an old man, so I have seen literally all of these films in cinemas, which is, not gonna lie, pretty great. Yeah, I think 96 would have been the year before I started working at my local cinema, so it wasn't one of the ones I initially projected. But it's definitely one that I went to, and then I've seen every single one since in the movie theater, because you know what? They are big screen movies, and I adore them for that.
Mm-hmm. Tom would agree with you. And Rachel, what about you? What's sort of your history with the franchise?
Honestly, I don't even remember when I first started watching them. I just feel like they've always just kind of been there. I think probably my guess would be my uncles and my father got some bootleg version of one of the older movies, and I watched it that way. Like that's how it was in the older, and I love them. And like Tom Cruise, is he's a bit of a weirdo, but I've always loved the man, and I always think that he's his movies are always really, really great. So I'm down to clown with Mission Impossible. It's my favorite franchise. Of any of the movie franchises out there, it's my favorite one. I think it's one of the most consistent up until the recent ones, but we'll talk about that later.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. No
I
spoilers
know, I'm
here.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Awesome. Okay. The way this episode will work is the three of us have ranked and rated all 8 Mission Impossible films, and using my super top secret insider formula, I have tabulated the results for us to have a master list that is inscrutable, and I will not hear any notes based on our final list. We will go through that order, talking about what we like and didn't like about each film. But Matthew, can you tell us a bit more about the franchise as a whole?
Yes, I can. So Mission Impossible originally premiered in 1966 and ran for 7 seasons. The team was originally led by Stephen Hill, later of Law and Order fame, as Dan Briggs from season 2 on, Peter Graves from A&E's Biography, and Airplane, the greatest movie of the 20th century, played Jim Phelps, the team leader. He played that role for all the way to the end. And that was the role taken on by John Voight in the 1996 film adapted by Brian De Palma, which kicked off the franchise we know and love today. From the first episode, it established many of the tropes that remain in the franchise to this day. The team leader accepts a mission from a tape. The tape is later destroyed or self-destructs. He then assembles a team of specialists to pull off whatever caper the episode demands, utilizing disguises and gadgets and overly elaborate plans that all have a 1 in a million chance in working. The series never really left public consciousness. It spawned a continuation series in the mid-1980s with Graves and several other cast members returning before Tom Cruise and Paula Wagner, who was his producing partner for a long time, adapted it to film in 1996. Since then, there have been 8 films with Tom Cruise in the role of Ethan Hunt, a new character created for the films, and team leader after a plot twist in the first movie. There are several other recurring players, such as Ving Rhames, who is the only other actor to appear in every film, Simon Pegg, Rebecca Ferguson, Michelle Monaghan, Sean Harris, Jeremy Renner, Henry Czerny, Haley Atwell, just to name a few. Brian De Palma, of course, directed the first one, with John Woo, J.J. Abrams, and Brad Bird directing 2, 3, and 4, and then Christopher McQuarrie taking over for 5 through 8. One of the film's big hallmarks until McQuarrie joined was that each film reflected the different directors' distinct voice and sensibilities, which has been, sadly for some of us, left behind. But the big draw has always been whatever big stunt Tom Cruise is willing to pull off for the film. He's walked on the side of the Burj Khalifa, he's hung from cliff faces with no safety lines, he's done dozens of high-altitude, low-opening skydiving jumps, and leapt from one biplane to another in midair, all to make sure that the audience is entertained.
All right, well, let's get into our countdown. All of the films will be talked about freely, but I will include a timestamp specifically for the latest film, The Final Reckoning, in case any listeners haven't had a chance to see the film yet. And we'll start out with generalities for that film, but I will give a second spoiler warning that I'll include in the show notes, because I am sure we're going to want to sort of discuss where the franchise goes forward, because I think that's sort of impossible to talk about The Final Reckoning to talk about what the franchise as a whole means. But yeah, let's get into our rankings with our number 8 film. And we actually don't have to wait very long for our first spoiler warning. And that is because coming in at number 8 is The Final Reckoning. It is the 8th film, as I just said. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning previously was going to be called Dead Reckoning Part 2, and then they dropped that whole Part 1, Part 2, but I don't think they really did. So, but the plot is, our lives are the sum of our choices. Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt in Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Wow, that's a terrible logline, IMDb. I probably should have looked at this first. Yeah, so this is the latest movie. We all did not care for it. I'm
just going to interject and say that I still liked it.
Yes.
But it's not my favorite movie in the franchise, but I still very generally liked it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is like, overall, this is a movie, you know, I'm not going to reveal our ratings for all of these because it doesn't make sense, but Rachel and I both had it in our 8th spot, and you had it in your 7th spot, and we all gave it the same score, a 3 out of 5, which, like, I think universally sometimes gets confused of like, oh, that's not a good score. No, that's a good movie. That's still a good movie. This is a very difficult movie to talk about without getting deep into spoilers. So I guess I'll sort of save my thoughts first. Rachel, I want to start with you in terms of setting up a supposedly final movie. What makes this the lowest of your ratings?
I think it's an incredibly weak film just on its own as part of the franchise. And I do agree with Matthew. I don't think it's a bad movie, and you as well, Dakota. Like, I don't think it's a bad movie, but I don't think it's necessarily a good, definitely not a great movie. I think it's one of these films that, because also it's meant to be the final one, and if it really is the final one, I find it even more disappointing in that context, because I think it is incredibly heavy on exposition, not just about the previous film, which they rehash for like 45 minutes, 30, 45 minutes. They're just talking about what happened in the last film. And then they're also talking about what happened in the entire franchise. These movies have never been, the idea has never really been that there's like a solid through line throughout all 8, or I should say the first 6, like, let's call it that way, the first 6. Not to say they were episodic and stood on their own. Of course, they have through lines with Ethan and with certain members of the team. They come back. Certain missions and certain villains, they get carried over from film to film. But the way that they do it in Final Reckoning, it makes it seem as if this was all one giant story, and like, but that felt really forced, because I don't think that was ever the plan. And so when you retcon it that way, it just feels very, I suppose it feels kind of fan servicey, like they think that this is what we want to see. But I just think it's, in terms of the storytelling, I think it's an just incredibly like lower than what the entire franchise, the bar that they have set for themselves. In terms of the stunts and the set pieces, I do still think that they're really great and they're really interesting. I wasn't a fan of the underwater one. I know Matthew really liked that one. But just overall, to me, it's a massive step down from the first, even 7. I'll say, I think it's a massive step down from even Dead Reckoning.
And what about you, Matthew? Because I think of the three of us, I think you're probably going to be the most positive, and I'm going to be the most negative, with Rachel sort of coming in the middle of us. But what worked for you in this film?
I mean, the action sequences for one. I kind of don't get that you didn't like the underwater one, because I thought it was legitimately thrilling and easily the most interestingly filmed and presented one in ages. And Tom Cruise jumped from one biplane to another. It's in the end, like, the action is never going to be the problem with these movies. The problem with this movie is that it is very much part 2, and it's been so long since part 1 that the first hour is a slog, because they have to reiterate all of the plot from the first one, and then they do the whole thing that they tried to do with Spectre and they do with the Marvel films, which is sort of like retcon past stuff into being more important than it was at the time, which is a little bit frustrating. And then this is sort of spoiler alert a little bit for when we eventually talk about Dead Reckoning, which is that I think there's only, these are both nearly 3-hour movies. And I think there's probably 2 good 2-hour movies, or maybe 1 good 3-hour movie between them. Or a great movie, because it's still a good movie. Like, the first hour is a slog, but once it's available at home, I'll be able to fast forward the first hour, so who cares? And I've rewatched Dead Reckoning, I think, twice since it came out, and it's still a good time. So there's no denying the filmmaking. They're too well made to be like outright terrible, but it's a big disappointment for a franchise that I've loved for 30 years.
Yeah, for me, I think, 2 real big selling points for this movie are the performances of Haley Atwell, who came in Dead Reckoning and continues in this part as Grace, and the addition of Tremel Tillman, who plays Captain Bledsoe, who easily steals that entire sequence. Every time he has a line reading is just absolutely amazing. I loved every moment of it. I agree that with Matthew in terms of, I think the submarine sequence is the highlight of the film, but this is the type of film where, unfortunately, the more I think about it, the less I like it. I really, really, really hate the montages of showing us clips from the past films. It had absolutely no reason to be there. I don't care that the last film came out 2 years ago. Don't treat us like we're idiots and we can't remember what happened. This franchise is one of the highest grossing franchises ever. People know what happened in these films. And like, we don't need to see these obscure character moments be like, oh, and this is how it all ties in. None of that was needed at all. And frankly, if they just cut all that stuff out, that would help with the runtime in a big way. And that really annoyed me to the point where it basically left a sour taste for almost everything else, because everything else that was happening, I was going, yeah, but this. Unfortunately, there were too many plot holes that frustrated me, and it felt a little too repetitive in terms of like, well, every time Ethan supposedly has gone rogue, he ends up saving the world and we all get proven to look like idiots. But, this time he really has gone rogue and we absolutely can't trust him. And it's like, how many times can you reuse that same plot? Like, why can't there just have been, a mole in the government that didn't trust him or something like that, and they're out to get him to stop him? I don't know. Whatever contrivances you want to come up with, it would have worked better than them rehashing this whole plot line of, we can't trust him. He's gone rogue. Oh my God, again? Like, they even acknowledged it.
I mean, to answer your question, how many times can you reuse that plot line? The answer is at least 5. Because he does it in 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
But like, that's all done well. Like, if you do it well, I don't care if you repeat the trope. Like, I'm not watching Mission Impossible for, I don't mean to diminish it or anything, but like, I'm not watching it for like, high art or anything like that. Like, I'm watching it because these are the most entertaining films that are out there. And so if you're going to,
they're the most
they are. And if you're going to redo those tropes, I don't care, do it, but do it really, really well. And it was not done well at all this time around.
I think have you guys actually watched the TV show at all? Because I grew up watching the TV show as well. Like, it was one of those shows where like I would go to my grandmother's house and it would just be on TV and I would watch it with her. I watched a lot of TV with my grandma when I was a kid.
Like Ed Sullivan show.
Never.
I know that about Matt. Yeah. Sullivan
show. So the one thing that I sort of found a little bit disappointing is the wrong word, but one of the hallmarks of the show that I didn't really mention in my initial little write up there is that the show has effectively no character development. Like, Jim Phelps is the leader, and he just brings together a team and they do the thing. There's never there's not a lot of like personal relationships. There's basically no personal life stuff at all in the whole show. And I feel like the movies have had a little bit of that, like obviously with the Ethan's like wife in 3 and 4 and 6. And just the fact that Luther has been around the whole time and they're obviously like best friends. But that's about like the extent of what the movie needs to be, what the story, the plot and character development need to be. And I feel like trying to make it into this big like Marvel universe, or like, again, the go-to comparison for me is Spectre, because I think
Spectre's a great comparison,
because that movie also tried to do this with the the prior 3 James Bond films, and it just also didn't work, right? So I feel like trying to do that with this franchise is maybe, I know they want to give Tom a send-off, but like the way I would have done that, if Hollywood is listening, would have been to just have him, save the day and then be promoted to being director. So he's Jim Phelps in the next one. He doesn't have to do the big stunt because he's now 63 years old, but he can be the guy who he can be Anthony Hopkins in Mission Impossible 2, just show up, give them the mission and leave. And then he still gets to produce it and make all the money. There, I solved it.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Comes in to help with one stunt. Yeah, or something. All right. I want to very, very quickly touch on big spoilers here. So, second spoiler warning, putting this in the show notes, the timestamp for this, in terms of how this movie ends, and then we're going to move on to the next one. I am going to say I am very disappointed that Benji did not die. He was literally narrating the stages of death he was experiencing and that he would not come back. And then he somehow shows up at the very end, which was complete BS, in my opinion, and completely removed any sort of weight that scene had. I kind of wanted them to No Time to Die it, which is a spoiler for here too. I kind of wanted Ethan to die too. I want, like, I don't know. Like, I get him surviving. They can keep making the movies if they want, then blah, blah, blah. But all in all, it removed a lot of the emotional stakes, which was something this franchise struggles with at times, where the stakes would sometimes feel real for some movies, and then especially the Christopher McQuarrie ones, the stakes don't feel real at all, because you're just like, oh, well, they're just going to win the fight.
I mean, I don't exactly disagree with you, but I think that's why they killed Luther in the first act.
Yes.
Which I don't really agree with. I think this is all comes down to the fact that the way that McQuarrie shoots these films is it's all very on the fly. It very famously has worked with Rogue Nation especially, with Fallout especially, but also with Rogue Nation, where they just kind of like go to places and film, and he like writes on the day, and then they find it in the edit. And I think that those two movies being great is maybe, and then Dead Reckoning being pretty good, has kind of given him a little bit too much confidence in that process, because I feel like it definitely feels like he did that again and then just couldn't find it in the edit.
See,
and
I personally think Christopher McQuarrie's problem is that he lets Tom Cruise dictate too much. And like, I think that's why the two of them have worked together for so long, because I don't think McQuarrie is a director on this. I think he is more like, he does what he executes Tom Cruise's vision for these things, and he directs it so that Tom Cruise can focus on being Tom Cruise in these films. Whereas when you had, people like Brian De Palma, John Woo, J.J. Abrams, Brad Bird, they all have like a distinctive style, and they got to use their distinctive styles into their films. And I don't think Christopher McQuarrie, to me, it's Tom Cruise. And for the first couple, it works, but I do think it gets in the way, and it got in the way certainly in this one, because I don't think Tom Cruise is a director. He's obviously an incredibly talented filmmaker in other ways, but he's not a director, and he should kind of step aside and let other people actually direct.
I mean, he's very technically gifted.
He is. He's Tom Cruise. I love the guy. He's great. He can be as crazy as he wants. He's great.
I would say too that like the whole thing of, like I mentioned earlier, that like it's kind of sad that the distinct directorial voice has been lost from the franchise. But I think McQuarrie actually did a pretty good job with that with 5 and 6 as well, which we'll get to. But like 5 feels distinct, and 6 also feels distinct, and part of that is that he hired an entirely different crew purposefully for 6 than for 5 to purposefully give it a different feel. And I think that's very successful, and then he just kept going with that crew, and so 7 and 8 feel the same, and it's a bit of a disappointment.
All right, well, let us move on to the next film in our list, which is coming in at 7th place. We Mission Impossible 3, directed by J.J. Abrams.
What?
IMF agent Ethan Hunt comes into conflict with a dangerous and sadistic arms dealer who threatens his life and his fiancée in response.
Whoa, hold up.
I'm sorry.
Hold up. Okay, Matthew and I both had a very...
I am sorry. I messed up. Mission Impossible 2 is number 7.
That makes much more sense. Jeez.
Oh man,
like,
I'm
I
so
put Mission
sorry.
Impossible 3 as like my number 2 or 3 on the list.
I think it's my number 1, if I'm not mistaken. I was like, how much did you hate it, Dakota? Jesus.
Yeah, like Jesus.
Okay, fine.
Let me re-record.
No. I keep it all in.
Whatever.
Keep it all in. If you don't, I'm gonna just keep mentioning it later on. So you have to.
It's never gonna go away if you don't keep it in. So. Might as well just live with it.
All right, so coming in 7th place is Mission Impossible 2, directed by John Woo. In the IMDb plot description is IMF agent Ethan Hunt is sent to Sydney to find and destroy a genetically modified disease called Chimera. Do I have egg on my face? So we've got the second film, which was really interesting. This was absolutely, I know for me, a first-time watch. So all of this was brand new, and it sort of has an unfortunate reputation of being, I guess, before the most recent one, easily the worst film of the franchise. And the reason why is because John Woo has a very distinct style, and it works great for his Hong Kong films. And I feel like for the most part, his American films just sort of feel like cheap knockoffs of John Woo's Hong Kong films. And you've got this great first spy thriller, and then you've got this over-the-top doves flying, motorcycles drifting on their sides under cars and crazy shit like that happening, and the over-the-topness, and a lot of people were really turned off by it. And then all of a sudden there's a hard pivot in Mission Impossible 3, which we will eventually get to, not the number 7 film, where it back to more of its grounded nature, similarly along to number 1, before continuing and slowly amping up the ridiculousness throughout the franchise, whereas 1 and 2 just seem like such polar opposite films. I actually really like this film. I had it a bit higher. This was my number 6 film personally. But Matthew, this was your last place film, so I guess let's sort of get the negative out of the way. I know we understand you do like all of these films, but this was your least like of the films you like. What makes this the least liked one for you?
So let me just preface this by saying that it is at the bottom of my list. However, as long as 6 is at the top, and now 2 and 8 are at the bottom, and honestly, they can be in either order. At this point, I hold them pretty equal. As long as 6 is at the top and 2 and 8 are at the bottom, my list that would be a valid list for me. You can put the rest in almost any order. It's the worst because it's maybe the slightest and it's the most ridiculous in some ways. And, but it's also like, even though it came out in the year 2000, like it is the most 90s movie ever. But there's just not a lot there. It does have Anthony Hopkins there to deliver like one incredible line read. But it's also like a much slighter plot. Like the De Palma one, which we'll get to, is this like intricate story, and this one is not that. It's all flashy camera and not as much thought, and I think that's why people reacted to it the way they did. But it also has Dougray Scott and Tom Cruise jousting on motorcycles, so it can't be all bad. And there's also a moment where Dougray Scott goes to stab at Tom Cruise, and the knife like ends up like in his eyelashes but not his eye, and like
That's real.
That's a real knife on a string,
completely real,
like on a cable that Tom Cruise did for real. Like that's insane. And like the big cliff scene in the very beginning, like he's climbing that cliff, like that's not faked. He's on a cliff.
He's so silly.
Like, it's one of the first. That's the first like big stunt that he did, right? So even though it's the weakest, like plot-wise and honestly probably acting-wise outside of Anthony Hopkins, it's still like a ton of 90s fun. Like it's an easy one to rewatch. And everyone has an Australian accent. So again, how bad can it be?
And Rachel, I feel like you've often defended this film, even though you're not crazy about it. Where do you stand?
I'm going to defend the doves of John Woo. Okay, like listen, that's an important hallmark.
Doves are dope.
It is an important hallmark of John Woo movies. I take it back to Face Off when Nicolas Cage he's in the church and the doves go flying. It's artwork. It's beautiful. It's the greatest thing ever. Mission Impossible 2 is so 90s. Like, I agree with Matthew. It's the most 90s of the 90s, like, action films. It's right up there with the Face-Offs, with, like, the Nicolas Cage kind of entries in that decade. And I'm a huge fan of those. I really love that kind of outlandishness to it. And I agree that in comparison to the first one, it feels very off. Like, the two of them, if you watch them together 4 years apart, it's weird. Like they don't fit together in the slightest. But Mission Impossible 2, when you consider the entire franchise, it fits better into the franchise than the first Mission Impossible movie does. But maybe it just kind of jumped a few spots ahead kind of thing. So I completely agree with you on that, Dakota. But I do think it's fun. I don't know. I just think it's fun. Like I don't think, like looking at the rankings that I sent you, I think I ranked this, like in terms of my number ranking, it is the second lowest one that I ranked, but I ranked it at my number 6, same as you, Dakota, because I just really enjoy it. And it's just a film that I liked watching more than I liked watching my bottom 2. And it's one that I have rewatched many times, actually. I watch Mission Impossible movies a lot. But yeah, to me, it represents everything that is excessive about Mission Impossible movies, and it's done by John Woo, who I adore. He can do no wrong, doves and all.
Yeah, I think if this film came after the third one, I think it would probably get a lot less hate, because the third one also has a lot of ridiculousness in terms of like the face mask stuff that really comes into play for that. But yeah, it's an interesting time. Anthony Hopkins was a huge surprise for me. It was like, that kind of sounds like, what the hell? Anthony Hopkins is in this? I had no idea he was in this film. And the one thing I really liked about at least the first half or so of this franchise is the person that would play the secretary was always sort of this like big, really established, legendary thespian. And I really appreciate it that they'd come in, do one scene, knock it out of the park, and that's all they would do. And so I was like, holy shit, Anthony Hopkins, you got him in this film? That's crazy. Yeah. And there's a couple times throughout the franchise watching, I was like, wow, they got this person to come in and do this? That's really cool. So I like that.
You have to think, sorry, I was going to say, you have to remember at that point too, Tom Cruise is like he is still one of the biggest movie stars in the world, but at that time period, he is like the most famous kind of biggest movie star in the world. So for him to get all those people, it's like he had a lot of respect.
Yeah.
And I know we keep kind of poking fun, but it's like at that point too, his Scientology stuff wasn't so out there yet. So he was very like, he could do literally no wrong to the public, to his colleagues, everything about it. So yeah, it's amazing who he gets into these films, but it's not surprising at the same time because he's huge. He's Tom Cruise. He can get whoever he wants, really. And I mean, now obviously he can get whoever he wants, but back then, even still, like you have Anthony Hopkins, who I'm sure, but he likes doing fun films though. Anthony Hopkins, I feel like he enjoys this kind of stuff.
He really seems to. And he's Silence of the Lambs was only like 8 years before this or something like that. Yeah. Like he's already an Academy Award winner, and he seems to like showing up at movies and just be having fun. He seems like a really fun old man, and I really respect him for that.
Call him Tony. People call him Tony.
And then like without this is not hyperbole, when he says to Ethan Hunt, when he says, "This is not mission difficult, it's mission impossible," like that is one of my favorite
best thing ever.
He's ever done.
It's the best.
Like,
it's so good.
It's right up there with. So I don't know if you guys have seen The Edge, but if you've never seen The Edge, that has my all-time favorite Anthony Hopkins line read, where he is talking about a bear and how he's going to kill the motherfucker. It's so good. But yeah, it's a fun movie. It's a dumb movie, but it's
dumb
but
fun. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and it might be the slightest of them, but it's fun. Like, who cares? It's fun.
Yeah. I had a good time.
And the soundtrack, as a person who grew up in the 90s, the soundtrack is full of bangers.
Those guys. Full of bangers. Yeah, that soundtrack's really good, actually.
So one of my notes I have in this is Ethan goes from dweeby junior agent to sexy star in this film. And they really amp up the horniness in this film in a way that's never seen again. There's a couple moments where you're like, "Ooh, he's got some chemistry with his female leads." No, and this is the only one where you're like, "Oh no, Ethan is going home and having sex now." In fact, we see it happen at least once in the film where he has sex in the hospital, I believe. Or is that a different film?
That's different. That was after he got married. Yeah. This one was in the villa, like the little hotel-y kind of villa thing.
Yes.
It's a sexy movie.
With a very young Thandaway Newton.
It's really, really sexy movie. And Tom Cruise looks great.
It's horny in a way. It's horny in a way that I appreciate, because movies just aren't really horny anymore.
Yeah.
And so I just appreciate that about it.
It was horny in a PG way, too.
Well,
in a way that we just
PG-13.
never really see.
PG-13.
Yeah, well, like, I don't think there was any nudity or anything like that in it, in that sort of sense where... Whatever, it doesn't matter. That's my sort of final thought on that film. I say we keep this train rolling and going to our number 6 film, which is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1? Not Part 1? I don't know. Ethan Hunt and his IMF team must track down a dangerous weapon before it falls into the wrong hands. This one, of course, is directed by Christopher McQuarrie and is the 7th entry into the franchise, setting up what is... Part 2, The Final Reckoning. Oh man, this is going to trip me up the amount of times I have to think about how they retconned the name. This is a very interesting film. We all, once again, rank this in our bottom 3 spots. It is a fairly great action movie that unfortunately suffers from possibly the worst MacGuffin plot structure out of all of them, and that is using AI as the villain. The Entity might be the lamest, dumbest thing I've seen in almost any movie, and like literally I could not care less. The fact that every scene has them going, that's what the Entity wants us to think, that's what it wants us to do, I could not care less, and that got tiring so quickly, and that is one of the reasons, especially on rewatch, it hurt a lot.
Mind-numbing,
my estimation on
absolutely
rewatch.
mind-numbing. And then the fact that I know we're done with Final Reckoning, but like the fact that they decided to go over this again for like 45 minutes, it just was, it's the first time that
I just saw this movie a couple years ago.
Yeah.
You don't need
But
to repeat it.
It's bad. Why are you repeating something that's bad? Like, God.
So I will disagree very slightly about this, because I don't 100% disagree with what you're saying, but I think what part of what makes Dead Reckoning better than the Final Reckoning is that the Entity has agency through Gabriel, right? Like, and I think that, again, spoilers for Final Reckoning, but like Gabriel being separated from the Entity because of how he failed in Dead Reckoning makes them both stupid and redundant. Right?
Yes.
So like the two of them together is like a digital god, for lack of a better word, and its avatar on the planet, like in the physical world, I think is actually a really compelling pair, and there's a lot of ways that could go with that.
Like the sequence in the airport where they show it, and like that's really cool. I actually really enjoyed that, and I think that's really 100%. Interesting. But
like the club scene, oof.
But I also feel like they needed to, like, maybe, I don't know if you guys watched Westworld, but there's the season that has the big like AI bad guy Rehoboam, and it turns out at the end that the human guy who created Rehoboam is just like has a microphone behind his ear and does whatever the computer tells him to do. And like that would have been more interesting here in the Final Reckoning. I know I'm just talking about the Final Reckoning now,
but you can't talk about Dead Reckoning without Final, especially now that it's out. Like you can't really talk about one without the other, because, and they purposely did it that way. Like that's why they are so.
It's tough.
You know, it's hard to separate the two, which is why in a way I put the two of them as my bottom 2, because to me they're kind of one in the same. Although one, I think Dead Reckoning to me is a much better made movie though than Final Reckoning. I think storytelling wise,
well, it's definitely it's cut together.
Yeah,
better,
I
too.
think so.
Like it's it seems to have had a clearer story from the get go, or at least they found it in the edit better. But then, and we didn't talk about this when we were talking about Final Reckoning, but you should probably put a spoiler warning on this section too, Dakota. One of the things that really pisses me off is that I really loved Rebecca Ferguson in these movies, and I'm not pissed off that she died in this one. But what does piss me off is that although I really like Hayley Atwell, I think she's really good in both movies, she takes on this like assumed intimacy in the second one that would have been way more impactful if it was still Rebecca Ferguson. You know, like, so I feel like they should have just maybe written her out entirely rather than just writing in a replacement.
Rebecca Ferguson for me is, I think, the only. Let me be careful before I say this, actually. I think she is the only member of the team that has died or not come back that I truly, truly miss them. Like, I miss her not being in the movies. Like, after I watched Final Reckoning, I didn't realize how much I would miss her in these films. But then after Final Reckoning, I was like, I miss Rebecca Ferguson, because she was such a great partner and a great foil to Ethan throughout all the movies.
My note I have about this is losing Ilsa hurts, as she's a Mission Impossible MVP, but it gives the franchise weight again.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Because for a while, because there's at least like the 2 movies before this where it felt like they're just adding members to the team, and then, oh, never mind, Jeremy Renner's just not coming back, but you know, he's still around. And that was the first time that they actually gave weight to the franchise again, and it sort of sucks that it came at that expense.
See, I agree with what you're saying in terms of intent, but I feel like killing her off and then just replacing her with a very similar
Another
looking,
brunette.
like another brunette who's a bit roguish, who Ethan has an instant attraction. Like it's not the same, but it's kind of the same. And I feel like
Yeah.
that robs it of some of the weight you're talking about.
Oh, 100%. I absolutely agree with you there. Haley Atwell, I think, is
I love her.
great
Yeah.
in this franchise because she brings the levity that has been missing for a couple of the films. Like specifically in this film, the driving in Italy sequence is both hilarious and sexy at the same time. And it's something that we haven't got a lot in the franchise, except for in the earlier films, where it's that combination of fun to look at, funny, sexy, all this sort of things wrapped up into one, and it worked so well.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
Yeah, completely agree. I like Haley Atwell in these movies. I think she's great, but I miss her.
Mm-hmm. But it sucks that it's at the expense
I miss her.
I
miss her.
Yeah, a couple other things, like the writing in this is pretty awful. Like one of the things I liked, or I'll talk about, is that the briefing scene where, Ethan Hunt shows up, and it's the first time we kind of see Carrie Elways, and some of the worst dialogue. And then he does the smoke bomb thing, and then the scene gets really cool, and the dialogue actually gets good when we get back with Henry Czerny and all that sort of stuff. But like the first half of that, and they continue that whole awful approach in the final reckoning where all these like heads of departments each say part of a sentence and they're all finishing each other's sentences. Some of the worst writing I've ever seen in a big movie of recent years.
I actually kind of like that scene.
I overlook the writing for these movies. I really do. I feel like they're supposed to be like that. They're supposed to be a little bit camp. They're supposed to be a bit ridiculous and kind of bad in their own way, because I don't know, it's just a part of the type of the film is to me. And again, I'm not trying to diminish the film for an actual like good movie or anything, but it just seems to me part and parcel. Like it works. If you put that kind of dialogue in many other action movies, I don't think it works. I think it's stupid. Like Fast and Furious is a really good franchise to compare it to. Like that dialogue, I don't think that what the franchise brings makes up for that kind of shitty dialogue. Whereas Mission Impossible, I think that they more than make up for it. And in fact, they build around it and they make it so seamless in that you kind of like laugh because it's funny. It's just funny. It's funny, Dakota.
It is funny.
Take it as comedy.
And then you also have Indira Varma just hanging out looking sexy as hell. And the other generals are all played by super fun character actors. And then he has a really great scene with Henry Czerny. Like it's a fun scene. It's a whole fun sequence.
Where's your whimsy, Dakota? Where is it?
Oh, don't ask Matthew where that is. He'll tell you where it is. My whimsy. All right, let us move on to,
because you have to have some. So in order for that to work.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to our number 5 film, and that is Mission Impossible 1. An American agent under false suspicion of disloyalty must discover and expose the real spy without the help of his organization. It's one of those things where, like, I think a lot of people are going to be shocked. Like, how do you have the first Mission Impossible film so low in the 5th spot? But I think it sort of just speaks to the fact of the top 4, which I'm sure the 3 of us can, gather, and everyone listening can gather, are all super high quality films. And like, our rankings are all so tight for them that this just has to come in the 5th spot because something has to come in the 5th spot. First time watch for me. So like I knew nothing. I knew nothing about this film, about it at all. I kind of had an idea who was in the cast. But what shocked me was me not realizing that the entire cast dies within the first half hour and they get replaced. That was pretty cool, and I was not expecting that.
I love this movie. Like, I genuinely love this movie. I've struggled with my top 3. But I agree with you, actually, to go. Like, that top 5, it's kind of like the 5 and 3, right? I think most people can agree what the bottom 3 are, and then your 5. The 5, it's hard to order them. I love this movie. To me, it's it's almost a very noirish kind of movie. It has that kind of feel to it in its own way. And I love that idea of not only are you killing it, like you have Emilio Estevez. And again, think about like the time period of when this movie came out. Like you have some pretty big name actors for that time period.
Yeah, and Kristen Scott Thomas.
Yeah, and I mean, we can spoil this movie, right? Like John Voight And then
Yeah, everything
well,
is
this is
on
also
spoilers.
like a very old movie at this point, so it's like a 30-year-old movie, but it's like you put such huge names in, and then you take them away in, like you said, like in the very first mission that they do. That's insane. Like that's crazy to kind of play with the audience like that. And I love this movie. I think it's such a fun movie, and really it's really dark and really gritty at the same time, which the rest of the franchise, it loses that, I think, by what can we say, 3-4 around there maybe.
By
I mean,
three. We'll come to that, but it's
take
definitely
two
by
out,
three.
because two, as we've already discussed, is a bit of a kind of a leap. But yeah, I'd take 3-4, like around there. But I adore this movie. I think it's so good.
I agree. I love this movie a lot. Um, I love that by killing the whole team in the first 5 minutes, it gives stakes to literally everything else that they
Yep.
do in a way that,
Yep.
again, the film has sort of the franchise loses a little bit. I think that more characters should die in the franchise. I think the next one who actually dies is probably Josh Holloway in 4. I want to
Yeah.
say, like, it takes a long
Yeah.
time for someone to die and not come back. But it lends weight to everything that they do, and it has lots of like Brian De Palma like Dutch angles and
Oh, so good.
all kinds of like ridiculousness in a way that gives it a real distinct voice. In many ways, it's the most like the TV series in that there's very little character development. They just go straight into the mission. But also, I'm sure you guys did at least some reading, but like I also remember that at the time, like lots of people hated how Jim Phelps turned out to be the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Oh, yeah. I can imagine that.
Because
I had no. Yeah.
because he was the team leader for 6 of the original 7 seasons and both seasons of the
Mhm.
80s reboot. Like apparently a bunch of the like original actors like walked out of this movie. Like at least one like publicly
Wow.
walked out of the movie. And Peter Graves himself was like, no, I didn't like it. So it was an interesting time for the franchise, but I think that like by making Phelps the turncoat was a huge surprise, a huge twist at the time that we sort of take for granted now. And I really appreciate them taking a big swing in a way where, now they dangle Tom Cruise off of things, but they don't necessarily take the big narrative swings the same way they used to. So I appreciate that about it a lot.
Do you want to know how I knew this movie was directed by Brian De Palma?
The Dutch angles?
No, the split diopters. There was, I don't know, a dozen of them.
Yeah.
I love
But
a good
this-
split diopter shot.
But it's like he had a distinctive style, and he did it, which is
Yes.
what makes these movies great. Like these first few, anyways. Like, sorry, I shouldn't say first few. They're all great in their own way. But I love that. I love when you have a franchise and you have different directors come in and put their stamp on it. I think it's great.
And I thought Vanessa Redgrave was great as like,
Mhm.
is she the bad guy or not? And I thought they did a really good job with that. And playing on this, she's the bad guy until she's useful for us. And then, you know what? Someone else is the bad guy. And I really like that. And they tried to do that a couple other times throughout the franchise, specifically with people that we later learn are her children. But the Vanessa Kirby character. But yeah, I thought Vanessa Redgrave is another person in a sort of Anthony Hopkins vein of like, this is a legit actor. Like Vanessa Redgrave is a legend in England, a legend of the stage, and she's doing this, what could have been a very silly spy movie, and she kills it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I think
Like she has a good playfulness and a flirtiness with Ethan too.
To me, the best franchises are able to take these, the thespians, however we want to regard those types of actors, and are able to make them not feel out of place either in these films. Like they don't look kind of off. Like it's not like, what are they doing here? It's just very, very off that they're in there. They fit perfectly into the world. And I commend Mission Impossible a lot for that, because I don't think everyone is able to. I don't want to keep comparing it to Fast and Furious, but like they had Helen Mirren, and while that's fun, like it's not done quite the same way, in my opinion.
No, I mean, the difference there is I think Fast and Furious is pretty, for lack of a better way to state this at the moment, Fast and Furious is kind of lowbrow and knows it. And Mission Impossible is kind of lowbrow, but doesn't know it.
Or
You know
doesn't
what I
care.
mean?
Like they don't
Or
care.
it doesn't
They're just
care.
like,
Yeah,
we're going. Yeah.
we're doing this, and everyone's coming along for a fun ride. You know, like it
Yeah.
doesn't try to be. Yeah. Anyway, you're right.
Yeah, I really like this, and I think if I was to put on a random Mission Impossible movie just to rewatch, this would probably be the first one that I'm going to go to. I think because it's pretty self-contained, and I think they just do such a good job of blending the sort of like the intrigue with the set pieces and all that sort of stuff. This is easily going to be one that I think I'm going to revisit a lot.
I think this is the one I've seen the most, not just because it's the oldest as well, but like I think it's the one that kind of in the same scenario that you're putting there is if I feel like watching a mission movie, then I'll usually put this one on just because I love it so much.
Nice. Okay, well, let us go to our number 4 film. So we're now in the top half of our rankings. And in number 4, we have Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, directed by Christopher McQuarrie. Ethan and his team take on their most impossible mission yet when they have to eradicate an international rogue organization as highly skilled as they are and committed to destroying the IMF. Matthew, you sound surprised that this is our number 4 film. What is your surprise for?
I just honestly just thought it would be higher. I know a lot of people hold this movie in high regard. I think I put it in number. Where did I put it?
You have it as your 3rd film.
I had it at 5.
I have it at number 3.
Yeah.
I think it's, it does things with the franchise. I think it highlights that when McQuarrie works, I think he works really well. And I think that this one is a good example of that. I think another problem we didn't talk about so much with Dead and Final Reckoning is that they are a little bit on the fan servicey side. And so is this one, but in a way that feels a bit organic and kind of fun. Whereas the other ones are just kind of like, really? You're bringing that back? And I think that it's Sean Harris in particular is easily... It's hard to say this because Philip Seymour Hoffman is so good in 3, but Sean Harris is probably the best villain in the franchise. And I think this, in a franchise that has a villain problem, I think that's a big deal. And it's also the film that introduced Ilsa Faust, and I think of the ones she's appeared in, it's easily the best one for her. She's so badass in this movie.
Like in Vienna, that's the greatest. It's
yeah,
the greatest.
Like
It's so cool. Yeah,
the whole set, the whole turned up piece is incredible.
Yeah.
And I really love this movie. I'm surprised it came in. I sort of expected my number 2, Dakota, to come in lower than this one, even though it's my number 2, because I know I'm sort of an outlier in that one. So that'll be a surprise for Rachel when it comes up, I guess. But I really like this movie. I'm surprised it came so low. But to reiterate, like, we're into the top 5, so the list is valid. So.
Yeah, this was your number 3, my number 4, Rachel's number 5. So like evens out to be the number 4 film for us, the way that worked out. There's a lot of things you said that I absolutely agree with. This is Rebecca Ferguson's, MVP of the franchise movie. Her, that whole sequence of her in the yellow dress, like, I'm going to, this is an audio format, ask everyone to raise their hand if they absolutely fell in love with Ilsa Faust in that yellow dress. And I know everyone on this call is raising their hand. And I know everyone listening to this podcast has raised their hand as well, because she is absolutely stunning and she kicks so much ass and does such a great job with it that, like, it's hard not to absolutely just fall head over heels for the Ilsa character and Ferguson's portrayal of it. And I agree about Sean Harris. I'm going to agree to an extent. And I heard Rachel's also sort of disagreeing with you. I think we're both going to be on the same page of saying that there's a different villain that is the number 1 in the franchise, but he is easily the number 2 in what I agree, a franchise that has a villain problem. My one quibble is, I hate Sean Harris without a beard. It looks very unnatural, and I do not like it.
But that's part of it, isn't it?
Ugh.
It's part of it because it makes it so unsettling to see him like that.
The voice doesn't fit a beardless man.
That
voice is
that's
pure
what
gold.
It is, though. That's what makes you like. He makes it so creepy because it doesn't fit.
Geez,
I guess
Dakota,
I'm the
it's
one that kind of pulled the movie ranking down in a way. I bet you're right, Dakota. It was like in the middle of that. I
It
don't know.
evened
Anyway,
out.
I don't know.
yeah, but
It's
I
20.
like.
It's
I'll say I
2025.
love this movie. I love it. Like I. That's my top 5. I could mix and match at any given day. Like Rogue Nation, if I watch it, maybe it'll be like my number 1 next week. Do you know what I mean? Like it's
Mhm.
those 5 movies for me are I could put them on even keel straight across the board because I do think that they're all amazing. And I actually really like Jeremy Renner in this one for a character that I feel like they weren't sure what to do with him because I if remind me like okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there was a time that people thought Jeremy Renner was about to take over
There
from
was a
Ethan Hunt,
time that was a
Yeah,
real
right?
thing. He
yeah.
And
was
so
handing the franchise over. Yeah.
and so I think that it was it, and I don't think Renner can rub people off. I think a little bit on the wrong way, but I feel
Phrasing.
like they,
Phrasing.
yeah, it's how do we know it wasn't intentional? No, but I feel like they figured out a really sorry, I lost my earphone. I think they figured out a really good fit for him in the movie. Like if they didn't want him just to be another Ethan Hunt. Like I actually really like the way that they incorporated him into the film.
Mhm.
And then a great introduction, like you said, of Rebecca Ferguson as well. But like yeah, now I look at it, I'm like, why did I put it at number 5? But then I'm like, oh, what would I have moved? Because I love all the other ones too. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a
a
great
legit
movie
point.
though. It's a great movie.
I will say this is one of the first ones too, where, and this, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent because we're sort of running out of time here. But um, one thing that I do sort of miss from the TV show is that in the TV show, the IMF, like you never know who they work for, like never. In 7 and then 2 more years of the show, like it's heavily implied at certain points that maybe it's like a UN agency, but you never actually know. But in the movie series, they go from being the CIA to being then the CIA again, and then they're their own agency in 3, and then are they their own agency in 4, and then in 5 they are it's not really clear. And by 8, it's just like they're just these people who are superheroes who don't have any. Like it's
Yeah.
so weird how different the agency is in every movie. And I feel like this one is sort of guilty of worsening that.
Yeah. My final thoughts on this film is I think that the plot overall is kind of clunky at different points, but the action is probably, set piece to set piece, probably the best in the entire franchise. There are other films that have higher highs. We're obviously going to talk about it when it comes up, but I think across the whole film, the action I think is the best. It has the highest peak overall, especially for me. The motorcycle car chase in Casablanca was absolutely incredible.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the dive into the server room thing too. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a
especially
very,
when
very
you
cool
consider
one.
that like you can't even tell on screen, but like him and Rebecca Ferguson hold their breath for 6.5 minutes. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy.
The one thing this franchise does almost a terrible job of doing is hiding some of the incredible feats that Cruise and company are doing based on the way they edit / use CGI in some of the stuff. Because some of that server room stuff looks really terribly fake, even though in reality, Tom Cruise is really holding his breath for 6 minutes.
Yeah, they're just surrounding him with CG at times. It's distracting.
Yeah. And then my last thing about this is kidnapping the prime minister has very National Treasure vibes.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. All right, let us move on to our number 3 film, and that is Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, directed by Brad Bird. The IMF is shut down when it's implicated in the bombing of the Kremlin, causing Ethan Hunt and his new team to go rogue to clear their organization's name. And I noticed that neither of you made an audible noise for this, so I'm guessing safe to say we all sort of agree this is probably in the top 3 region, but no, it shouldn't be any higher or lower.
I think I had it as my number 4.
It's my number 4 as well. Yeah, it's my number 4 as well.
And I think its biggest failing, because I think, and just to shout out when you said higher highs, I see what you did there.
Tall building.
Yeah,
Tall building.
I get it.
I feel like this one is very lacking. It's probably the most lacking in the villain department, and I also feel like I sort of like the idea that the IMF is gone and they're just sort of surviving on their wits, but it becomes a bit repetitive. So I feel like this one is a stunt in some ways, and again, 4 out of 5 movie for me, love it. But in some ways, it's kind of a stunt in search of a movie, and
yeah, but the stunt is
but
so
the
good.
stunt is so good.
Like the
it's
stunt
so
is
good.
so good. I think I really struggled between Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation of like where to put them as 4 and 5. I think my top 3 I was more or less settled, but I couldn't figure out which one to put above the other. And I think the only reason in that moment, in the day that I sent it to you, Dakota, that Ghost Protocol edged out Rogue Nation was just because the stunts are so incredible. Like they are awe-inspiring. And I don't know if we're really ever going to see filmmaking like that again, because it's people just aren't doing it, because only Tom Cruise can really get this kind of stuff made anymore. And it's such a beautiful phase of filmmaking that I'm always bowled over by it. Anytime I watch it, I just think it's incredible.
I mean, he's also just like the highest trained stuntman in the world at this point, is what it feels like. And there's no other actors. Like Florence Pugh jumped off a building for Thunderbolts, which I think is really cool. But unless she keeps doing that, I don't think it's going to be.
Not Tom Cruise.
It's not Tom Cruise.
But have you guys heard that? I know we're running on time, but like, have you guys heard this? Matt Damon tells this story a lot about Tom Cruise, where they were talking. I think he's talking about this sequence actually.
Yeah,
he's like, "How did you get that greenlit?" He's like, "How'd you get that greenlit?" And Tom Cruise is like, "Well, I took it to like the safety guy, and he told me you can't do it, so I got a new safety guy." Like only Tom Cruise gets away with that kind of stuff. Nobody else does, because every single health and safety rule and regulation is broken because it's a Tom Cruise movie, but he is able to get it done. And like that to me is what makes this movie quite special, because I really don't think it's gonna happen again.
For me, one of the things that really worked is they basically have 2 cold opens for this movie. You've got this opening sequence where it's Sawyer from Lost, which, Matthew, you already mentioned him saying he's the next guy that dies. And I don't really count him as having stakes, because we get introduced to his character and then he dies like a minute later. But we get introduced to him in this really cool sequence as he's running away. And then all of a sudden, Léa Seydoux shows up and like does this like wink at him, and he gets distracted for half a second and she shoots him, and it's just like, oh my god, what the hell was that? That was crazy. That had me like almost standing up in my couch watching it, being like, that was an insane sequence. And then from there they go to Ethan escaping from a prison, and he's having this like silent argument with Benji, who is controlling the gates in the prison, and there's this all-out brawl that's going on, to the point where my note is, Benji definitely got a guard absolutely murdered. Like, that's my note from that sequence. What an insane bit. And then it goes to them running out the tunnels of the prison, of someone literally striking a match against the wall to go into the theme song where the fuse is lit. Oh man, that was an insane sequence.
This is filmmaking right here. It's incredible. It's
probably for me my favorite single section of any Mission Impossible film was that double cold open.
Yeah, I mean, very technically speaking, I think it's easily maybe the best one. I just think that it's, and I really like what's his name, Michael Nyquist, I think.
Nyquist.
I think he's a really good actor, and I think he's a charisma hole in this movie, and it's a real problem.
Hey, he was,
and it goes, and it goes from like 0 to the world is going to end.
Yeah,
kind of like, it feels clunky, even though that's always kind of the stakes. Like, I kind of prefer when those aren't the stakes. And I will say that,
the 2 movies. Sorry, Matthew, go ahead, finish.
I was just going to say, I don't think that Josh Holloway's character himself has stakes, but I think him dying in the beginning definitely gives stakes to everything Léa Seydoux does in the movie. Establishes her as a real danger. And my last note about this movie is that when we're talking about people we miss, I do kind of wish they'd brought Paula Patton back.
She was great. Yeah. She was really, really good in this. I liked her. I thought she was amazing in it.
And Other than the second one, this is the only other one I feel like has an element of sexiness to it with between Paula Patton and Leia Seydoux characters.
Yeah.
That's because they're sexy people. That's why.
They
really are.
they are. Well, I
Rogue
mean, the whole
Nation-
franchise is filled with sexy people.
I was gonna say Rogue Nation to me though is sexy just from Rebecca Ferguson with her leg.
Yeah.
That alone,
Yes,
I was
yes,
like,
yeah.
this is great. But what I was gonna say, I think the two movies, like Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation, they both very much so highlight the best things about the franchise. But like Rogue Nation to me is the best things in terms of the storytelling. Like I think I agree with Matthew. You can't flaw it for that. It's really, really tightly done. And then Ghost Protocol is the stunts and that type of filmmaking with an interesting plot, sure, but like, and I think when you put the two of them together, it's just like, it's probably too much. I don't think that's too much. We can't deal with that. But I think when we look at the franchise, the reason I struggled so much, I know, between which one is better is because they're both of them speak to what makes Mission Impossible, again, in my opinion, the best franchise that we have right now and that we probably ever will have.
Yeah.
I love the journey that my notes go on where I say insinuation that Ethan and his wife have divorced. I'm like, okay, interesting. We're going to talk about that from another movie. And then my next note later on is, never mind, his wife is dead. And then at the end of my note says,
these things down. That's really fun.
well, yeah. And then my last note about it is, triple fake, she's alive! Exclamation mark.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah, which also hilariously shot at Granville Island in Vancouver.
Oh, I didn't know
Matthew,
that.
I'm sure you picked that out.
I did not pick that up at all. Wow.
Oh yeah, it's very.
It was like that lighting. That's Granville Island, and then I looked it up. I'm like, it is Granville
You
Island.
don't even have to
Funny.
look up the lighting. Like when there's a long shot across like a pier towards the Granville Island Public Market. Like I think they changed the sign, but the building is
I
very.
need to watch it again. How did I not even pick up that? That's great. That's crazy. I should have.
I don't know.
Feel
It was
like
like
a bad
literally.
Canadian.
I
I should have known that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's meant to be San Francisco, as Vancouver often does, stand in for San Francisco. But yeah, it's very obviously, like everything in San Francisco was shot here, I think. So yeah.
And continuing with my love of the secretary, Tom Wilkinson, one scene and done, chef's kiss.
He's
doing
great.
Instead of saying this message will self-destruct, he self-destructs because he gets shot. Amazing. Amazing.
I do also
Filmmaking.
love. I'm going to keep digressing
Filmmaking.
and then keeping it going longer, which is counter to my goal of not going over time. But I do love the moments between Renner and Cruise in this when Renner's like, there's a whole sequence where he floats Wilkinson's body down the river with a flare. And he's like, how did you know that would work? And Cruise is like, oh.
The two of them were actually really, really great together. Like I have
great
to say,
chemistry.
it's actually really impressive.
I do kind of, I miss Renner too. Like I know he doesn't really have a place in the team, but I do miss him on the team, you know?
I think also at this point, that's when the Marvel stuff was kicking in. And so he probably didn't have time to do both, maybe.
And also Tom Cruise made the decision not to give it up. And then for the recent movies.
But he didn't have to. I actually think they found a really good way to have both of them in it. Like you don't need to give it up for Jeremy. I say that because he's my buddy. But
they could have just done what I said for 8. They could have just made him the secretary at that point.
Actually, yeah. But Renner might be a bit too, I don't know.
No, I mean, make Cruise the director and make him the lead agent.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
but this is the era where Jeremy Renner was gifted 2 franchises and had both of them taken back because there was also the Bourne one.
Yeah. Rough go.
He was supposed to be the real, well, whatever. Anyways, yeah. Poor Renner.
Let's move on. Coming in at number 2, you guys can't make fun of me now. It is Mission Impossible 3, directed by J.J. Abrams. IMF agent Ethan Hunt comes into conflict with a dangerous and sadistic arms dealer who threatens his life and his fiancée in response. Now, here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to pit Rachel against Matthew because Matthew said Sean Harris is the franchise's best villain, and Rachel, you made a noise under your breath at that point because I'm guessing you think it's Philip Seymour Hoffman.
So I'm just going to jump in and say Philip Seymour Hoffman. Philip Seymour Hoffman is the best villain in any single film. Sean Harris only takes the edge because he's a great villain in 2 of them.
So what I'll say, what I appreciate that Mission was able to do with Sean Harris that they weren't able to do with, I don't know how to pronounce his first name. Is it Aya Gonzalez? The one who plays Gabriel.
Esai Morales.
Morales. I'm thinking of the female.
You're thinking of the
Anyway.
woman from who's
Yes,
in
I am
Fountain of Youth.
from Ambulance, from
An Ambulance,
Ambulance LA. And yes, that's who I'm thinking of. Anyways, I was thinking about the movie the other day. Look, I think what they were able to do, Sean Harris, is really cool. Like, I like that they actually were able to move his character along, which we have seen it wasn't an easy thing for the franchise to do. But it's Philip Seymour Hoffman. To me, I agree.
He's
Like
so
Matthew,
good.
any movie that he's in as a villain, or any movie he's in at all, villain or not, he's probably one of, if not the best thing about the movie. And Philip Seymour Hoffman in a mission movie, it's perfect. Like, it's absolutely perfect. And he understands exactly how he's supposed to be. And I'll say one of my favorite things in the mission movies is when they do put the mask on, and then you know that the actor kind of has to flip to like being like kind of I love it. It's such like a simple little thing, but I love it. So I love seeing Hoffman go from this really, really, evil baddie, and then he has to kind of play that like, I know you, and he does it perfectly.
It also has the single best mask transition in the whole franchise.
Yes, 100%.
Side note, just for 1 second, is anyone else hearing that clicking sound? I think it might be coming from your headphones, Rachel.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It is.
Yeah.
How do I fix
make a
that?
time marker for that. I think. Are you just fiddling with your microphone with your headphones? Maybe.
I just did. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all it is. Sorry.
Is it done?
Right. It's done now. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I will not move a muscle.
So I think, like, just to get back to it, I think Philip Seymour Hoffman has the single best villain movie. And this movie also does a thing that I really appreciate, and that you never, like, they're after a thing and you never know what it actually is. And I kind of
care.
You don't care because it doesn't matter. And
it doesn't matter.
Part of me kind of hates that they explained it in 8 what it is.
Explained it so much too.
But like, there's a movie I love there's a movie I love from the 90s called The Spanish Prisoner, which if you haven't seen, I won't spoil it for you. But it's the same thing where like the MacGuffin is a process, and that's all you know about it. It's an industrial process that will create a ginormous windfall of money, and that is all you know about it. And the rest of the story is just industrial espionage for 90 minutes. And con games. It's amazing. And this movie does a great job of that too, where it's just like, you're after the rabbit's foot. What is it? Doesn't matter. I'm just going to go get it. Doesn't matter. I have to go get it.
Yep.
And what a great name for the MacGuffin too, actually, I'll say. Like, it's a good name for something we don't really care about.
Yeah, like, is it supposed to be lucky? What is it? I don't know.
Like, I like it.
So good.
Yeah, and it's also, I think it's one of J.J. Abrams' probably his best movie as a director.
I think it's his best movie. I think it's the best movie he's done. I think it's his best film.
It doesn't go too deep into things like nostalgia or lens flares or.
I miss the lens flares though.
Yeah, but
I do like that about JJ. I like that about him. He's he's just really going for it.
There's a balance, and this movie doesn't have enough, but most of his movies have too many.
Do you guys like Jonathan Rhys-Meyers in it?
I like Jonathan Rhys-Meyers almost every time he has an Irish accent. So yes, I think he's great.
Same.
Yeah. And also,
I love the Italian thing with him and that was fun.
And also, again, with people I wish had come back, where's Maggie Q been this whole time?
Yeah.
She's cool. I do. I'm a Maggie Q fan.
The whole supporting cast here is great. I think Kerry Russell also does a really good job.
In such a small role too. Like,
for a long time,
she's great in that.
For a long time, the rescue and the factory thing was most easily my favorite single sequence in any Mission Impossible movie.
Yeah, and Billy Crudup too. I enjoy him in it. I think he's very fun.
I do think, continuing the Philip Seymour Hoffman love, I think he also brings out Cruise's best acting in the franchise.
Yes.
Which, that's something that Philip Seymour Hoffman did with basically any scene partner he ever had in his life. And like every time I watch a movie with him, I think we all sort of feel the same way as movie lovers, being like, damn, like he was gone far too early, and the amount of work that we are missing out from him is just a travesty to the history of cinema.
But what he gave to us is absolutely just like across every genre, right? Like he's done something, and he's incredible. But your point about Cruise stepping up his game, I didn't actually think about that, but I feel like that's why we like Rebecca Ferguson so much too, because she's such a phenomenal actor that I think it forces Cruise, because Cruise sometimes has that thing where he's like the smartest man in the room kind of thing. Like he's the best
Yep.
actor in the room. He's the biggest thing.
Yep.
When you put people who can not just go toe to toe with him, but maybe even supersede him, then I think it makes Cruise better, because Cruise is a really good actor, and I feel like sometimes we forget that. But he makes us forget that, though, to be fair. I don't know what his deal is.
He needs a director who's going to push him outside of his comfort zone, as well. Anyone you talk about his best performances, it's because he's with auteur directors, or he's across the table from a world-class actor like Philip Seymour Hoffman or Rebecca Ferguson.
Yeah.
And just to further that slightly before we move on, like, this film also has the best cold open of any of them. So this was my favorite Mission Impossible for a long time.
It's a very good one.
I can totally see that.
I mean, it is. Yeah.
I also felt like the airplane interrogation scene felt a lot like the Batman and Joker scene in The Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and also,
which was, I thought was cool.
Also, single best Tom Cruise run in the franchise.
That man, his posture while running, like it's remarkable to me. I'm very inspired by it, but then I never go and run. But I am, like, in theory, inspired by his running form.
Yeah, you don't go running because in real life people just jog and he runs.
Yeah, but it's like we're old. What are we running for? I know Tom Cruise is older than us, but
he's like 20 years older than me.
But I'm not like, but you know, like, why are we running like that? I'm not playing sports anymore. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I don't have to save the world, so I don't need to run like that.
It's just silly, and like, it's silly. I'll just sit straight in my chair and be like, this is kind of like Tom Cruise.
My favorite quote comes in the whole franchise comes in this movie, where someone says, "He's an invisible man, Wells, not Ellison," and I just like the witty wordplay of that. I was like, ooh, because there's two different Invisible Men books. I get it.
See, the writing is just impeccable in these types of. It's great. You know, come on.
All right, well, let us move on to our number one film. And the two of you, I feel like you alluded to at the beginning saying this better be the number one film without outright naming it, because I think everyone listening knows what the best film in the franchise is, and that is Mission Impossible Fallout, directed by Christopher McQuarrie. A group of terrorists plans to detonate 3 plutonium cores for a simultaneous nuclear attack on different cities. Ethan Hunt, along with his IMF team, sets out to stop the carnage. So why, Matthew, do you believe that this is sort of the consensus number one by Mission Impossible fans?
I think it's the consensus number one amongst anyone who likes movies, isn't it? Like, it's.
Hold on. I still think 3 is the better movie.
Interesting.
You did rank them separately, but you gave them the same score.
They are. Yeah. I think they're both phenomenal films, but I do think 3 is. If you were to give me slicker.
Like 3 is slicker,
point whatever,
sure.
I would put 3 slightly above Fallout.
I would put Fallout. I put Fallout at the top because it is. I think this is the one where the action is at its best, personally. I think this is also the one where Tom Cruise gives the best performance overall. I think he's great the whole time, and I think that, you know, a lot of the time when he's doing stunts, he's doing a stunt and we don't, you know, he's acting, but he's doing the stunt. And in this one, he jumps out of a plane and he acts the whole way down. Like, he is dialed in.
That Halo jump
the whole movie. And he did that Halo jump like 100 times. Like, crazy. I think it has the most emotionally resonant themes as well. I think everything to do with Ilsa and with the wife, and with, you know, one of the great strengths of Sean Harris's villain in 5 and this one is that he's kind of a dark side Ethan Hunt. Like, he's the best guy on the other side, and that's super interesting. Like, they have a kind of Batman Joker thing going on. And I don't know, I really love it. I think it's also the one where, you know, the themes are the clearest. You know, that it starts out with Alec Baldwin saying that, like, the way he came to be the secretary because of Ethan Hunt, because of the way that Ethan won't choose between one life or a million. And then Tom Cruise spends the rest of the movie, Ethan Hunt spends the rest of the movie trying to prove that that is a valid thing. So I think that, like, it is the best constructed, even though, again, totally found in the edit. There's lots of extra footage you can find online if you go looking for it from shit that they filmed that didn't use. But I think it is the best constructed, the most emotionally resonant, the most thematically clear and resonant and the best performed of all of them. And then the big
It's
stunts are great.
also, I was
And
also going to say, it's introduction of Angela Bassett. Which,
introduction of Angela Bassett. I think Henry Cavill's a great secondary villain.
Yeah, he's very good.
And Sean Harris is always great. And I love the way that Ethan. It's the one where Ethan is like, I have to protect my team, and that works. Like, even though they are super competent, he feels responsible, and you can feel it every moment of the movie. I really love this one. This is the only one. I love all of them. This is the only one to give a full 5 out of 5 to.
I think.
I really love this film too. One, Sean Harris has a beard, so I felt very reassured in his villainness. So that really worked for me. There's just so much love about this film. You know, Angela Bassett says, you use a scalpel, I use a hammer, talking about the difference between Ethan Hunt and Cavill's August Walker. And what an apt way of describing their relationship. So much so that I think everyone sort of points to probably one of the biggest highlights in the franchise is the bathroom fight sequence where Cavill reloads his fists, which is the dumbest yet coolest thing in the world.
Tom Cruise ruined that for me because he kept making Cavill do it throughout the press junkets that they were doing.
Oh, did
he? Every single time he'd be like, do it, Henry. And I'm like, leave the guy alone. It's so weird, Tom. Because it's cool. I don't disagree. I think it is cool. But it was weird the way that Tom Cruise kept being like, go monkey, dance. And I was like, leave Superman alone.
You gotta give the algorithm what it wants, though.
I know. And it worked. I mean, hey, it worked.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is easily the single best fist fight in the whole franchise.
Yeah. For me, the Halo jump is what stands out the most to me in terms of action and things like that. I think it's so impressive. That behind the scenes one where they see the cameraman, but then you think, who was the cameraman shooting the cameraman? But anyways, I love that.
Tom Cruise, wasn't it? Didn't Tom Cruise have a body cam on?
No, it was a somebody else shooting it from a longer shot. You could see the two of them
two
clearly.
Jumpers filming.
It was crazy. But I think Fallout to me is the absolute peak of this franchise. And I know I said that I think 3 is better, and I do stand by that. I think 3 is better. But I think Fallout is the movie where everything comes together, and it's even though it's, what number is this one? 6? This is 6, right?
Yeah.
This is, to me, it's Tom Cruise has finally brought everything together in the exact perfect way that he wants it to be and he envisioned it to be. And you can tell that, I think, in the movie. I just think it's so... And it's very in keeping with the times as well. It came out in the 2010s, and I mean, just a few years ago. It wasn't that long ago.
2018, yeah.
2018. So it's it perfectly encapsulates everything that is great about Mission Impossible, everything that is great with Tom Cruise leading this franchise, and then the time period as well for the action films and the stunts, and how he is able to elevate the stunts to kind of a level that I think that he's always striving for. It's I think of James Cameron, who always said he had to wait for the technology to catch up to his vision, his idea, which is a little pompous of him to say, but whatever. But I feel like that was kind of the thing with Tom Cruise is Fallout was the movie that he was able to do everything that he wanted to do. And I know that the Burj Khalifa thing comes before this one, which is already insane, but there's just something very, I don't know, very, very complete about Fallout that to me separates it from every other movie in the franchise.
And I think to sort of piggyback of what you were just saying there, the plot of this is that he has to stop 3 nuclear bombs. Mm-hmm. That's about as world-ending as you can get, because the fallout, quite literally, to nuclear bombs going off is absolutely irreparable. And we go from slowly building up where the stakes are getting bigger and bigger and more about, going from single missions to, the whole world is in danger. And it kind of peaks with this. And then we spend the next 2 movies being 3 nuclear bombs almost went off, but even more nuclear bombs are about to go off. And it's okay, it's so hard. You can't top what is the worst thing that can happen. And that's often a problem with a lot of these bigger franchises is how do you keep topping the thing that came before it, and which is why the Fast and the Furious has just decided to sort of embrace the incredulity of it all.
Uh-huh.
But because Mission Impossible takes itself a little bit more seriously, it just sort of falls flat when you go from this is the end of the world to actually, no, wait, this is the end of the world.
No,
times 2.
this is the end of the world. Yeah, I love
So
it. It's
I think
great.
the other thing this one does really well, and I think this is actually, we didn't talk about it, but I think it's one of the big things that makes Dead Reckoning, and in particular the Final Reckoning, fail, is that this one sets up some clear themes in terms of like Ethan Hunt and his approach to being a spy and saving the world and not being able to choose between one life and a million and blah, 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 blah. And they try to do that, but they give him, a dark side version of himself to face off against, and he has to prove himself, not only to the world, but to himself, who he is and why he does what he does. And the next two give us Gabriel and promise us a backstory and then don't deliver on it.
Yeah.
Like at all. And so I feel like this thematically, they're just not as good. You're right. Complete is the best way to put it. This one feels the most complete of all the films, maybe.
Also, August Walker is an incredible name. Great character name. Great character name.
Can I say what is probably my hottest take about the whole franchise?
No.
No? Okay. Then never
Moving
mind.
on. Let's wrap it up. No, go ahead.
My hottest take of this whole franchise is this was the first film that I thought Luther had a purpose. I did not see the point or purpose of Luther for the first 5 films in this franchise. He says he does a lot of things, but we never see him actually do anything other than being Ving Rhames cool, which is fun, but he didn't actually do anything. And then all of a sudden we get introduced to Benji in number 3 onwards, and they're supposed to be basically be rival computer experts, and we only ever see Benji doing any computer stuff. We'll sometimes see Luther behind a computer, but he's not really doing anything other than being like, oh, and now you're in. I'm like, in what? What did you do there? And this was the first film that I actually felt they gave him something to do, which was nice. Unfortunately for me, it's too little too late. And my hot take is I don't care about Luther as a character.
Interesting. Because Luther definitely has stuff to do in 3.
Yeah.
Barely. I
there.
think he barely does anything.
He's chilling. I have a theory that it's him and Tom Cruise are just good friends. And Tom Cruise, we say what we will about him, but he is a very loyal man to those he
is Ethan Hunt.
Yeah, in many ways. And I think a lot of it, again, I'm not basing this on anything, but my guess would be it's about how much time Ving Rhames has for the films. So it's like Tom Cruise wants to get him in and he wants to be included, but maybe he doesn't have that many days to shoot, like as much time as Simon Pegg does. So they go, okay, we'll do that. But maybe for this one, they go in, okay, you have more days. Like we have more days for you. So let's write more for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it kind of works that way rather than they didn't have anything for him.
I think it also works because as much as Benji is another computer guy, Ving Rhames, like Luther and Ethan are like, for lack, they're brothers, they're brothers in arms in a way that Ethan is not with anyone else, which is why Luther is the one that died in the new one, right? Like he needed a more personal loss, and I don't think Benji would have given that to the movie. So, I mean, it might in the next one.
Yeah.
My hot take is there's definitely going to be a next one.
I think that there will be.
Like, I think Cruise might not do the big stunt in the next one, but there's going to be another one. These movies make too much money, and they keep hundreds of people employed.
I think Cruise, like if we know that this movie or Final Reckoning is a bit weak, Tom Cruise knows it too. Like I don't care what he poses for the camera. Like he's smart. He watches a lot of movies. We know this about him. He can't watch Final Reckoning and be like, yeah, this is what I'm going to end this franchise on. That is going to end up being, is it going to be his life's work? Maybe. I don't know. He does a lot of other great things too, but I mean, this is his biggest franchise and the most that he's, I think, the most in any franchise that he's been a part of. So I just don't feel like he can walk away from it with that movie.
Well, I think again, just bring him back as the secretary or the director, whatever it is.
I agree with that. It's like a Jack McCoy thing.
Yeah.
Tying it to the Stephen Hill mention at the very beginning.
I personally don't think that Cruise will be able to watch someone else do the stunts as he sort of stands on the sideline of the franchise. I don't know.
It'd be like a
But,
Maverick thing again, like that. Like he'd do like the Maverick.
100%,
Yeah.
100% is what I think will happen. But yeah, in terms of the future of this franchise, I had kind of hoped that Final Reckoning would end with, your mission. If you choose to accept it, and he, looks at the camera and says, "I decline my mission." And like, oh, he actually is done. Whoa, that's crazy. But they didn't. They sort of just insinuated this is the new version of the team because you've got, a couple new people. Some people survived, some people passed, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It sort of feels like they'll take a couple of years off. Cruise has already said that he's doing some more auteur work. He just wrapped a movie with Iñárritu. I think he's got a couple other more actually dramatic films in the works.
We're in his dramatic. He's in his dramatic era now. Like this is him.
Yeah.
This is the stage where now I think he is going to focus more on like getting his Oscar that he's wanted.
This is his P.T. Anderson, Stanley Kubrick era redux.
Yeah, and I mean, like I respect the guy for basically doing it until his body said he can't do it anymore, and then going, okay, I'm going to go back to doing these other things because there's a finite time for him to do these action movies, but he can be a very incredible dramatic actor for the next 20 some odd years if he wants to be.
Yeah, or longer, depending on how much of him is
or longer. Yeah, it's true.
I think Xenu will let him live forever. I think we're all sort of in agreement that like this franchise is clearly not done, and like all this sort of posturing of is this the last one was very silly, and we know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope.
I don't know, but they will.
Like I genuinely hope that they come back with another one because it would disappoint me so greatly if that is how they decide to walk away from this because no.
Yeah.
But there we go. That is our rankings of the Mission Impossible films. I'm going to repeat them. In number 8, we had The Final Reckoning. Number 7, we had Mission Impossible 2. Number 6, we had Dead Reckoning. Number 5, we had the OG Mission Impossible. Number 4, we had Rogue Nation. Number 3, we had Ghost Protocol. Number 2, we had Mission Impossible 3. And our number 1 film of the franchise is Mission Impossible Fallout. So yeah, there we have it. That is our rankings of this franchise. Rachel, thank you so much for coming on today. It's always a pleasure. I know I was joking about giving you a hard time at the top there, but I do always love when you come on the show. And this was something that like I know you're such a big fan of these films. I had to get you on, and like we worked a lot trying to figure out a date that works because we had to make sure that you were available for this. And so thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate when you let me come back on here because you tend to keep me away. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I mean, your check's always clear, so I gotta let you back.
Thank you. I genuinely had a lot of fun doing this. I love this franchise, like as you just said, and I was really looking forward to doing this.
Amazing. Where can people find you, and what have you been working on?
I don't know what I've been working on. I've been doing stuff, I'm sure, but you go to rachelho.com, which I haven't been great about updating, but that's probably where most of my stuff is. And I'm somewhat on Instagram at _RachelKH.
Amazing. Matthew, thank you for also doing this with me. It's been a pleasure. Where can tell the fine listeners where they can find you and what you've been working on too?
So I write freelance for lots of places, and the easiest way to find me is to go to either my personal website, which is stretched.ca, or to my Patreon, which is patreon.com/mcsimpson. All the links go to both of those places. And I'm starting to ramp up trying to do more just for the Patreon as well. So maybe do that one.
Nice. Make sure you head over to ContraZoomPod.com, where we have plenty of film reviews, including recent ones, Sharp Corner, Mongrels, Final Destination Bloodlines, Jane Austen Wrecked My Life, and a collection of Canadian Screen Award nominated film reviews. This has been a That Shelf podcast. Visit thatshelf.com for more great film discourse. Follow the show on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads at ContraZoomPod. What is your Mission Impossible franchise rankings? Let us know. Send an email to ContraZoomPod@gmail.com. Thank you to Eric and Kevin Smale for the theme music and to Stephanie Pryor for the logo design. If you like to listen to podcasts on YouTube, we do post all episodes there as well. And if you really like the show, consider tipping us on coffee. Thanks for checking us out.